Hi everyone, welcome to 10 Lite. It was going to be a news roundup show, but Rob pretty much covered that with his Fully Charged Live. It was Fully Charged Live, not the show, obviously. He did a Fully Charged news show live, streamed on the internet, and he's just finished that. So thanks to Robert, that was a great show, I really enjoyed that. I'm here now with the Farm Light edition of 10. Robert was in a shirt and a tie and a jacket, and so I figured, you know what? I'm going to have my baseball hat, which I think is for an electric car. Yeah, it's a Solar Mechanica hat. And my plaid shirt. So it's the farm edition, and I'm here in the countryside. And if you hear a strange buzzing noise, don't freak out, because there's a hummingbird feeder literally just there. And a hummingbird came up and hovered just by the microphone and then took off. So we've got the bird feeders behind me. We've got the hummingbirds coming up for their food as well. And so it should be a really interesting little live stream. I'm at my house, obviously, socially isolated, which is apparently the cool thing. You know, even Stephen Colbert's doing it. And, you know, you have to kind of decide that some of those things going on at the moment are kind of bizarre. It's all right, someone opened a window upstairs. It was my wife taking a photograph, saying hi, as she does. All right, so someone said you farted. Think we believed you. Okay, so to answer a couple of questions from the chat room, I didn't get tested, and I didn't get tested because I didn't want to waste resources getting tested for something that I absolutely categorically knew was not the dreaded. And the reason being is that my wife had a cold about 2 weeks previously, and there's been a cold going around her office, and people at her office, I think, had been tested, and they all came back negative. And I haven't really done a whole lot. I haven't been out that much, and I started socially isolating about 2 weeks ago. I think it was so a fortnight tomorrow, so 2 weeks tomorrow. Erin and I were both in the studio, and then on the Tuesday I was like, Erin, just work from home today, I'm not going to be in. And then on the Wednesday she had a day off, and on the Thursday I'm like, nope, you're working from home from now on. So she didn't come into the office from that point onwards, and I didn't really go into the office, and I didn't really interact with very many people other than the people in the house. My wife was still getting over her cold, and I was pretty convinced that's what it was. I did not have a fever. I didn't have a huge, you know, number of muscle aches. My appetite was fine, and so I made a decision at the point that my cold was the worst, when I made that video last week saying, you know, I'm not going to do any more videos next week. That was the point at which I decided, look, I don't want to waste resources going out and getting a test for something that I'm pretty sure is not the dreaded, and even if it is, I appear to be starting my recovery. And we kind of made an agreement that if I was still bad after another day, then maybe I'd go and get tested. But there's no point me taking up resources. I'm otherwise healthy. Yes, I do have a heart monitor for lung QT syndrome, but that doesn't mean that, you know, other things are a problem. I don't have asthma. I don't have any other issues with my respiratory system, other than being a little croaky right now, of course. So that is the way I went, and I, excuse me, I would urge you all to do the same thing. Use common sense. I don't mean don't go and get tested if you think you need to be tested, but I'm saying go and use common sense. Use common sense. Figure out, am I at risk? Have I been in contact with someone with this? Have I been social distancing? Could I have picked it up from, you know, someone and try and play that game? And if the answer is no, I don't think I've been exposed, and no, I don't have a fever, then while you may still have it, you just have to use some common sense rather than, you know, rush the emergency rooms. I have multiple dear friends of mine. Yeah, I'm supposed to, it's because I'm on camera. See, this is what I do when I'm off camera. But on camera, I've kind of got used to. I should show you the custom face mask I made, because that's really good. Anyway, I have lots of friends who work in the healthcare industry, and they are all scared. They are all absolutely run off their feet at the moment. Most of them are in the United States, and if you haven't watched the governor of New York, Governor Cuomo, and the speech he gave this morning in the press conference, I urge you after this is done to go find it and watch it, because that has given me more information about the state of affairs right now than any number of presidential addresses or press conferences we've seen this week. And I think I probably am just about to clash with a presidential briefing. So you've saved me from that today. All right, so why am I calling this the Farmer's Edition? I joke in jest, you know, I'm wearing my plaid and I've got my baseball cap on. But the reason behind this is right now, your local farmer needs you. And there's a hummingbird at the feeder, I can hear it. Your local farmer needs you right now. Why? Well, because while, you know, your big, massive farms that have thousands and thousands of hectares of farmland, and they have these big massive machines that just go up and down and up and down, they will sell all of their produce to big name, big box stores. And they, at the moment, are doing okay because people are panic buying, right? But your local farmer, the one who maybe has a lot less land, but has a small little farm store that they sell produce either that they've grown themselves or produce from other local farmers, they need you right now. Because in the restaurant and hospitality industry, a lot of independent restaurants and a lot of independent hotels will buy the groceries or the produce that they need for their kitchens from local farms, because it's a way of supporting the local economy. It's also a way of ensuring good quality, and it allows the chef, the head chef, and the team to have that connection between what's going on the plate and what's being grown locally. Right now, a lot of those local restaurants are either closed completely because they don't do takeout, and there are some local restaurants that don't do takeout, or they're operating at a reduced capacity because of the current crisis. And so if you can go and support your local farmers, please do, because they're hurting just as much as everybody else. We buy our milk from a local dairy that's less than 10 miles from here. And, you know, I go every weekend and we buy a gallon of milk. Oh, actually, we've been buying 2 gallons of milk. Now everyone's home. We get through about 2 gallons a week. So we've been buying 2 gallons of milk. Goes in the fridge. It's got a really long shelf life because it doesn't spend any time at all going between the farm and then the distributor and then the supermarket and then the back of the supermarket and then into the shelves. The carbon footprint of it's a lot less because you're buying from a local dairy who has a herd that is looked after and well managed. It's a small herd. You're able to see able to see the animals are healthy and happy, and that makes a big difference. We buy a lot of our fruit and vegetables from a local farm shop, different farm, a little bit further down the road. Same thing. They know me. We go in, we buy what we need. It does cost a little bit more, but then you're supporting the business as well. So I'm just going to read some of the comments. Okay, so no comments that I'm going to comment on right now. It looks like you're all having a little chat, which is good. I'm hoping that you can still see me, because otherwise we're all boned. So tell me if you can watch it. 16 pints a week. Do you wash in it? Well, we buy half-gallon jugs. So we buy half-gallon jugs. Well, we cook with it. So one of the things that we do is I drink coffee, I drink tea. My wife and my daughter drink coffee and tea. And I cook with it. Sometimes we bake with it. And when you drink this size coffee, you get through quite a bit of milk. obviously we have cereals, etc., etc. And the other thing is, don't panic buy, as someone just said. Don't panic buy. That makes a big difference. The other thing that people should probably know is that I am trying this year as a bit of an experiment, and it's got nothing to do with electric cars, but it's all to do with sustainability. And if you're getting really cross with me for this, please let me know in the comments and maybe I'll shut up. But one of the things that we're trying to do this year is to be as self-sufficient as possible. And so that means we are growing our own vegetables. We are getting chickens, which are due to arrive on the 17th of April. We want to try and start harvesting our own energy on the roof of the house. I don't think that's going to happen this year, realistically, because there's been a bit of a run on Tesla Powerwalls right now. It's really hard to get hold of a Powerwall right now to install, which is a shame. But at the same point, needs must, and we are effectively in a wartime effort right now, and it's really important that everybody, excuse me, it's really important that everybody clubs together and works together. This is really important, and we're really lucky. I'm going to go down a bit of a rat run here. We're really lucky because in the United States, around the world, we have something that we didn't have in the Second World War. We have the internet. I'm talking to you guys right now because we still have the internet, because the internet is functioning. At least it's functioning right now. And that's incredible. If you think about how this crisis would have rolled out just even 10 years ago. Just 10 years ago, imagine what this would have been like 10 years ago. I mean, I can tell you for a fact that 10 years ago, I wouldn't be able to have done this. Sure, 10 years ago I was making videos. People were putting videos on the internet. Does anyone remember Robert's Clamp TV? Remember those back in 1998? I remember watching that on my computer at college. But we have a lot more information now. So we have the internet. We're connected with the internet. And that means that people can still learn how to do things even if they can't leave their house. And that's really amazing and powerful. And of course, the other thing that we do have, whether we like it or not, is that we still have online retailers that can send us stuff. And just as I'm saying you should support your local farm shops and your local suppliers, the other thing I should throw in there also is your local world food shops. If you live in an area with a local shop that caters to a particular nationality, go support them. I was finding out, reading somewhere online yesterday, somebody was saying, all the local big box stores are completely out of everything. But I went down to my local Caribbean store and they had everything, and I was able to stock up on some of my Caribbean favorites as well. And so the same is true for online. You can go to your Amazons or your other big box online suppliers, but you can also still go to independent retailers. And right now, shipping is still considered, at least in the United States, is still considered an essential business. So you do have to pay the shipping, obviously. But again, support those little businesses, because without those little businesses, this is going to be really tough for everybody, and we'll come out of it with like one or two big name brands, and everybody else will be completely wiped out. And I don't think that's what we want to do. I just want to make sure this is still running, because I have a horrible feeling that the connection may have just died on us. So if you're watching this, I don't know, let me know if it's still working. All right. I'm going to read some of the, read some of these things. All right. No local farms where I am, says Hans. I brought smoked haddock yesterday. Going to cook it in half water, half milk, says someone. It's good. Don't shut up. It's good. Fruit trees behind you. Yes, absolutely. Are there other brands of static storage? Yes, there are. We should do this. Do you have a vehicle to grid with solar panels? Should work well with social distancing. How many days have you been infected. So I had a cold. I had a cold. It started last Sunday. It's pretty much done now. I feel almost back to normal. I think tomorrow I'll be back to normal and I'll be pushing stuff on. So there we go. 20 years ago, 1998. Oh my goodness, yeah. Ooh. To answer the question, yes, these are fruit trees behind me. We have a dwarf tree, a dwarf stock with 5 different apple trees on. And then we've got the same with cherries. And then behind, we've got just a regular Honeycrisp tree. They're going to go in the ground today. That's my job after this, is to go into the ground. But I wanted to do a stream partly because, obviously, we don't make money if we don't make content. But also, I wanted to let you know I was all okay. Did you see what I did there? I'm on the cold side of the house, which is really bizarre because it's really sunny and bright. You can probably see behind me, but it's not very bright here because I'm in the dark on the other side of the house. Where was I? Kind of lost my train of thought. You were asking if there were other storage products. Yeah, there are. And I think that's something that we're not doing very well, and I think other outlets are not doing very well. And maybe this is something that we want to cover more with Transport Evolved going forwards. We want to cover everybody, not just Tesla. And this is one of the reasons why we cover everybody. And I know that there are people who say, yeah, but Tesla's the only company. It's important that people realize that there are different options that suit different needs and different budgets, you know. And for those who, I think it tongue-in-cheek, say, well, you know, Tesla invented all of this, Elon invented all of this. Battery backup has been around for years. I remember when people were using lead-acid batteries. I remember visiting someone. I went into their garage and there was this slight sulfur smell in the garage, and they were like, "Oh, don't worry, we're just equalized charging the battery backup system." And I'm like, okay, fine. You know, solar panels have been around a lot longer than Tesla, solar tiles and roofs. So there are other options, and hopefully, again, it's all about supporting everybody. And it's okay to buy the best product that you can afford. And if that happens to be a Tesla product, great. But if you can't afford it, or you want to support someone else, or you feel that there's a product that offers you something that a Tesla product does not, then it's okay to go for that other product as well. All right, so back to our goals for this year. And someone's asking if we have fiber cable at home. No. So there's a couple of things about the future of Transport Evolved that we are currently trying to decide. So thing number one is that we currently rent a studio in downtown Hillsboro in Oregon. Hillsboro is where Intel have one of their campuses. There's also a small Nike campus, not the big one that's in Beaverton, which is the next town over, but there's a small campus for Nike, and there are some other big tech brands there. So where our studio is in a commercial business park, just off of Highway 26 in Hillsboro in Oregon, and at the moment it's costing us somewhere around $1,200 a month to rent that place. And we rent it because at the time I needed to have separation between business and home life, because I wasn't living here when we made the decision to start renting. Well, when we first got an office, I wasn't living at home. Start again. My brain's a bit mushy. When we first started renting, we rented downtown in Portland, and I was renting a house, so I didn't have a house that I owned that I could do any work on to turn it into a studio. We then bought this house, and almost immediately afterwards moved from the rented studio in Portland to a rented studio in Hillsboro. Obviously now the suggestion that everybody stay at home and work from home means that I'm not working at the studio anymore, and that's costing us a lot of money that we're not using. And our lease is up for renewal in August, and the company that we rent from has a bit of a reputation for putting the rent up quite severely in the first year. So we will probably no longer have that studio, and we're looking to work from here and have Erin remotely work and other people remotely work, it means that we won't be able to do any fancy sets like we'd planned. And it means that one of the rooms in this house is going to become effectively an office. It's not written in stone yet, you know. If in 6 months' time things have changed and we're back to normal, we may keep the studio. But right now, we've had to up the internet connection to the house, which is super expensive because we live in the countryside. Again, we chose to do that. But right now, the studio is kind of extraneous. We can't dump it because we just have to pay up front to dump it. But, you know, come August, we'll probably drop that. And then hopefully that means we'll be able to bring somebody else on full time. And yes, we're hoping for Starlink. We have no fiber. And the reason we have no fiber, I don't talk about where I live specifically, but I'm in the foothills of the coastal range. And I'm about 850 feet. And as you can hear, it's in the countryside. There's nothing behind me. Well, there's a big house a couple of mile or so away, but there's not a lot behind me. And so we have the only cabled internet we could have here, excuse me, would be ADSL. And it's AT&T, not AT&T, whoever does the telephones, the old wired telephones. And the maximum speed for that is half a megabit per second. And we could do satellite, which would be great. Satellite's really fast down, but pretty slow up. Old satellite. I'm not talking Starlink, I'm talking old satellite. And it has issues with reliability and people complaining about the companies. So we didn't go that route. So what we actually have, I don't know if I can show you. The cable's not long enough, but we have a 4G LTE connection on the roof of the house with a Yagi antenna. And then we have a Wi-Fi 802.11a link down the valley to a provider who is providing us at the moment with 2020 connection. We were on 1010, and then when we got the work at home order from my wife's office, and I made the decision to do it here, we ended up spending an extra $100 to increase it up to 2020. And obviously, if we get rid of the office, then we might actually be able to increase that to crazy fast, at least for rural internet, which means we'll be able to work from home, film from home, maybe live stream from home, and it'll be a lot easier. All right, I'm going to read some of your comments now, so just bear with me. Film everything from your veranda. I'm watching the birds. Yeah, so as a Brit, who moved to the United States, I still don't know all of the birds that we have here. And some of the things that were really kind of cool for me was that we have hummingbirds, which are not native in the United Kingdom. So we have a bird called the Anna's hummingbird, and they're really beautiful and they keep coming. We've probably got some chickadees behind me and maybe some yuncos. Every time I turn around they go, don't they? We also have a really nasty Steller's jay. Bright blue, almost iridescent blue. We've got some Steller's jays that come. The previous owner of the house never had any bird feeders. So it's taken the birds about 3 or 4 months to come to realise that we are actually feeding them, and so they're coming out more and more and more, and watching and feeding more and more and more, which is wonderful. So we're hoping Starlink, obviously, if that does go online this year, and I'm starting to doubt that right now, not because I doubt Elon, but because I doubt the situation. You could argue, conversely, that what we need now more than ever is Starlink, especially if Elon would be able to provide super low cost internet to everybody. And I really hope that's what he does. Because I mean, I think with Tesla, you know, Tesla's goal of making everybody, helping everybody switch to cleaner, greener forms of transport has really started the ball rolling, and Tesla's done amazing work. But the reality is you still have to be pretty wealthy to have a Tesla. And I'm hoping that Starlink doesn't become the Tesla of internet, i.e. really awesome internet, but also too expensive for a lot of people. And of course you can't buy secondhand internet. So I'm really hopeful that Elon is able to do the smart thing and make it affordable for everybody, that is at a price point that is very, very competitive to modern internet, but also enables people to have a better connection to the outside world. And I genuinely believe, I'm going off on a bit of a political rant here, and I'm sorry, this is not really connected to EVs, but I genuinely believe that if we have a better internet connection as a standard of living, as a right for every human on the planet, we're actually going to start to see a lot of things changing, because I think people will have better access to education, educational tools. I think virtual classrooms are going to become a thing. And actually, I think VR technology is going to go through leaps and bounds as a consequence of this crisis, because there will be a demand for it. You know, the Second World War saw us introduce radar and, unfortunately, atomic energy, atomic bomb, and the Cold War, all consequences of the Second World War. And I'm hoping that this current situation will bring us advances in internet technology, communications technology, VR, and hopefully also energy independence. Because one of the things, you know, we did this Sunday Musing last week where we talked about what would be the smart thing for us to do from this point onwards when it came to commuting. Is this all we needed to do, just stay at home and not drive as much? Our air quality has absolutely skyrocketed of late. Also, it's super blue sky out there today. There's no contrails or no trails from any aircraft, very little pollution. And that's because people are not moving as much. And China's nitrogen oxide levels have already started to climb because China has released and put things back to normal in terms of, you know, now that coronavirus cases have started to drop, that we're starting to see more and more people going back to work, and that means that things are improving. And I've just shot myself in the foot because I said a word that will get me demonetized. Darn it! I managed to get through 30 minutes of a show and got to this point. How expensive is it to connect fiber? $1,800 are a common fee here, even in the countryside. I don't know, but you have to remember that. I mean, maybe in Sweden you might understand it better than most countries, because America's really big. You wouldn't believe how big it is. I mean, it really is huge. And our address, our postal address, includes the name of a town that is 7 miles away. So we're technically part of a town that is 7 miles away. Now in the UK, that blows my mind, because you'd get a half dozen villages or hamlets between where we are and where the town is. But over here, we're still part of the same town. And I think the nearest exchange is like 10 miles away or something crazy like that for fiber. So I don't know. I did say Voldemort, and I'm really, 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 really regretting it. But hey, cool news. The Livewire, the Harley Davidson Livewire, has been ridden 1,070 miles in 24 hours. That's crazy. I mean, kudos to the person who did that. They've got an iron butt for sure. But the most I've driven in 24 hours, like I think we did when we were driving to Fully Charged Live in Austin, we did 700 and something in one day. I think we did 760 or 750 in one day. So to do 1,070 miles in 24 hours is just crazy. And while that is good, but it's also slightly crazy. It's also slightly crazy. I'm laughing because someone's watching, and it's morning. It is morning now. It is morning how? Says someone in the chat room. So for those who are asking, because people do ask on a fairly regular basis, I'm trying to get into my phone and I'm failing. There you go. It's morning here. It is, what time is it? 10:21 a.m. Pacific time. And that is because I live in Portland, Oregon. Yes, I'm British. Yes, I have a British accent. Yes, my co-host is also British. She lives about, 100 miles north of me, in Washington State. So the story behind Transport Evolved is we used to be in the UK. Excuse me. We used to be in the UK. Transport Evolved was started when I lived in England. And then my wife and I decided to emigrate. We just made the decision to emigrate in 2014. And Thanksgiving 2014, we sat at the table with my good friend and buddy and her wife, who is also American. And so my wife is American and Kate's wife is American. Where it becomes confusing is that I am married to a Kate and Kate is married to a Catherine, so it gets very confusing. But we were sat at Thanksgiving in 2014 in Bristol, and we were like, guys, we've got some news, and they were like, so have we. And we kind of did that. Oh no, you go first, you go first. And it turned out we'd both made the decision to emigrate to the United States at about the same time. So we emigrated to the United States in 2015, and Kate and her partner emigrated about 4 months after us. So we arrived here in August 2015, and then Kate and her partner arrived in around December 2015. It was either December 2015 or January 2016. I can't remember exactly. But that's it. Yeah, that's how I ended up being here. So that's why it's bright and sunny here, and it's not where you are if you're in Europe. That's the explanation as to why it's morning. This is not time shifted. I'm not time traveling, I promise. I'd show you an American plug to prove I'm in America, but both of the plugs are being used right now, and I don't want to upset the setup because we're streaming right now quite happily. The furthest I've ridden in a day is from near Tacoma back to San Francisco, about 800 miles, and I started at 0 dark 30 and got home at 11 p.m. So that live wire must be fast. Yeah, you see, this is the thing. So, I mean, what's the furthest I've ridden in a single day? I've ridden about 300 miles in a day on an electric motorcycle. I did that on the SA9, the Energica SA9. And that was hell. Not because it was difficult to charge, but because I was going up to see Kate up in, I was going to see how she was doing with her house. And there's a gap on, there isn't anymore. There was a gap on the I-5 between rapid charging stations that meant that I had to sit for like 2 hours and slow charge the bike, which was horrible. But there you go. There you go. Someone said I should stop the stream and start a new one because I said the dreaded word. You're also saying it's the best stream you've seen in a while. So thank you. I really appreciate that. So back to my personal challenges for this year, obviously, because people are asking why you're getting through so much milk. So we get through about 2 dozen eggs and we get through quite a lot of milk. And that is partly because we cook everything. I cook a lot of stuff for the family. We don't eat out very often. We don't eat ready meals very often. When my partner suggests we have a pizza, we call them emergency pizzas, okay? So we have like one emergency pizza in the freezer. And when she suggests that we have an emergency pizza, I look at her with terror because I'd rather cook from scratch. So I do tend to cook a lot of British food, being British. So I will make Yorkshire puddings, or what do they call them over here? They call them German pancakes or something, which just feels wrong. But we make Yorkshire puddings. We'll have toad in the hole and stuff like that, which is different. British toad in the hole and American toad in the hole are different. But we eat quite a few eggs, which is why we're getting chickens. Eggs are a really good source of protein, so they're really good. As long as you don't have more than about 2 a day, you're generally okay. We bake our own bread because I don't like American bread, so we bake our own bread. We have a bread maker. We make our own ice cream, which is where some of the milk goes. And we don't do that every week. We do that maybe once a month or so. And I make pretty much everything from scratch. And that's something we're trying to do. Excuse me. Because it reduces packaging, which reduces our emissions. And since we moved here, we're composting everything. We don't consume a lot of meat. I wouldn't say I'm 100% vegetarian because I'm not. I do occasionally eat meat, but I most of the time will try and eat a veggie option if one exists. And so this year we're growing in the garden a lot of things. I've already put potatoes in, and I have a separate channel in which I'll be talking more about gardening. We've already started off 2 different varieties of tomatoes. We've got 2 different varieties of peppers. We've got some lemon cucumbers that have just shot up. I need to plant the regular cucumbers today and start them off. And these apple trees behind us. We've also got some raspberries down there, which you can't see. So they all need to go in today. We actually bought those the weekend my wife was sick, and she had a cold, which was long before Voldemort broke onto the scene. And so we just put them there because she wasn't feeling up to helping me put them in the ground. And then she got better, and then I got ill just as I was ready to put them in the ground, so they're still here. But they've started to flower, so they really do need to go in pretty quickly. We've got an apple tree and a plum tree out there that need to be, not plum tree, cherry tree, that need to be tackled. I've already tackled the apple tree. And we're going to buy an electric wood chipper so we can chip the stuff. What is the name of my second channel? My Brain Jump with Nikki Gordon Bloomfield. I think that's what we called it. Someone can link to it. I know someone in the chat knows it. So someone in the chat, please link to it. We talk about some of the other things. And of course, there's also Transport Evolved Take 2, which is where videos like this would normally be. So, let's give you a bit of an update on the cars so that we can talk about EVs for a bit. So we have found the lost footage from the Kia e-Niro video review that we filmed nearly a year ago. We got hacked back in August. Someone said, "I know your password, you should stop saying nasty things about Elon." And I was like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. And they broke into our server and they moved stuff around, including a project that meant we ended up, we were working on an advert and it lost us $700, nearly $1,000 actually, because they deleted footage from a shoot and we had to go out and do a second day of shooting. So we ended up turning a 2-day shoot into a 3-day shoot. It was really inconvenient. Never found that footage, but at the same time they did that, they were just moving stuff into various places, and they moved some footage into the recycle bin, not realizing that my server had a recycle bin. They'd obviously told it just to delete stuff, and it had deleted some of the files, but not all of them, and put them in the recycle bin. And my dryer is just finished. We have Internet of Things washer and dryer, and apparently the dryer is just finished. Did you hear that? that was a hummingbird, buzzed my head. I don't know if you saw it, going to go and get some food. They kind of come halfway over and then they realise I'm here and then they disappear. So we had that footage and I've discovered it's still there. So I'm going to work on rebuilding that footage and rebuilding that review. So I'll try and do that in the next couple of weeks. We've also got some videos coming from other shows as well. And 2 electric cars to our fleet. Both the Chevrolet Bolts are doing just peachy. My Bolt is still making a creaky noise. It was due to go in and get looked at, and then obviously things happened and it's not. But we've towed with it since. My wife's done some towing with it and it's been fine. It needs a jolly good wash, but it's got 47,000 miles on the clock now, which means I'm 2,000 miles over my limit. Am I going to hunt it back and lease another car? Probably not. Am I going to buy it outright? Yeah, probably. Especially if I'm not going to be driving it a lot between now and August, which is when my lease runs out. The other Bolt's doing great. Orion's doing great. We just had to replace the tail lights because they blew. The number plate lights or the license plate lights. I got some little LED ones. I can maybe find a link to the ones we got and we put that in. Obviously LEDs are a little bit more energy efficient. They didn't have a cleaner light. They don't have quite the spectrum of light of an incandescent, but it's still pretty clear and you can see it at night, which is really cool. Kate Walton Elliott, by the way, not my Kate. Kate Walton Elliott's Kia Niro is still alive and kicking and doing well. She's using it to carry inordinate amounts of wood to and from her house because she's still working on her house. And I think the i3 is still doing great as well. So that is kind of a fleet update. Where are we? We are also talking about the city car. So I talked about this on take 2, and now I'm going to talk about it here. So the idea behind the city car is that we have agreed in principle a sale of a 1974 city car. Think Cheese Louise. It's not Cheese Louise, don't get excited. But it's a 1974 city car. And we have done some research and we're going to buy it. And we're going to basically take off the ABS plastic, unrivet the outside, and we'll fix the ABS. And then we're going to modify it. We're going to throw away the original motor, which I think is currently disconnected. We're going to throw away the original controller circuits, which are already disconnected. And we are going to basically use it as a platform to demonstrate open source electric vehicle work. And the reason behind that is that those of you watching this channel will know that we tend to cover new cars, and a lot of people who watch Transport Evolved are constantly criticizing about, well, you're only covering new cars, I can't afford that, that's too expensive. And so I'm finding a car that is that looks a bit ridiculous. Let's be honest, the city car is a bit ridiculous. And we are going to gut it and retrofit it with upcycled parts. And by the way, the car was purchased, or is going to be purchased, because of one of you guys watching this. I'm not going to name you, but one of you sent me a very generous check and said, please buy that car. So that's what made us decide to do it, because one of you went, you should do this. Here's the money to do that. So thank you. That's what we're going to do. The reason we're going to do this is because as a society, we are really wasteful. We create way too much waste. We create a lot of digital waste. We create a lot of material waste. We create a lot of food waste. And we all need to change. You know, what's happening right now is such a kick in the balls for the way that we were living our lives previously. It was too high stress. We weren't looking after each other, right? We were acting selfishly even. And we need to act more selflessly. We need to not be that person who panic buys all the bog roll in the supermarket, right? We need to be the people who go, you know, I was in a supermarket not so long ago, yesterday actually. I was wearing a mask, don't worry. I'm not, I'm confident that I'm no longer contagious. But I don't have Voldemort anyway. It was just a cold. I was wearing a mask to make sure I didn't, if I did cough, I didn't cause any problems. And there was the toilet rolls in the supermarket for the first time in a really long time. I was wandering down the aisle and there's only a few, and I'm looking at them going, do I need toilet rolls? And a little voice in the back of my head went, yeah, you could probably get one. You've got space in the house. You can put it in the house. We have a 2,000 square foot house. We've got plenty of storage. And my brain was like, no, that's selfish. You've got some toilet roll at the house. You don't need any more. You have a bidet seat, which, by the way, everyone needs a bidet seat. Everybody just go get a bidet seat. You'll never want to use toilet paper again. I made that decision at that time not to be selfish and just grab for myself. Somebody else needs it more than I do, and that's what we need as a society. But we also need to think about that in the way we consume things. It's great that the new iPhone 11, is it 11? This new iPhone 11 is great and faster and newer and everything. This is the iPhone X, okay? I've had this for what? More than 2 years. And it still works. I don't need a new phone. I don't need a new laptop. And I'm trying to have that same attitude to cars and the same attitude to technology. So a lot of people going, oh, well, now you've got the Model Ys out, you'll be selling your Bolt and getting a Y, right? And I'm like, no, I'm going to keep my Bolt because my Bolt does what I need it to. And it uses less energy to keep the same car. I've not been tested for Voldemort. I don't have Voldemort. I went over this again. I do not have the dreaded. It's just a cold. I didn't have any of the symptoms that warranted me getting tested. So, and I have practiced social isolation apart from yesterday when we went to the supermarket, and I had gloves on, had a face mask on, didn't touch my mouth, etc., etc. My coffee's gone cold because it's cold out here. I'm actually starting to get cold. I want to get out in the garden. I need to cut the grass today. I need to seed the lawn. I need to prick out some more plants. I need to make 4 more beds for the garden. And then I think I'll just about be ready to do more planting. But that's not what I was talking about. What was I talking about? The city car, the project on the city car. So the idea behind the city car is to demonstrate that it's possible to convert your own car to electric. And so I've chosen probably the most ridiculous car to do that with as a demonstrator. And so at the moment we're looking at the Toyota rear motor drive unit from like a Lexus hybrid or the Toyota RAV4 hybrid. They have a rear axle electric motor in them that's about 50 kilowatts, which is total overkill for something the size of a city car. And I'm not intending to use it as a 50 kilowatt electric car. My intention is to run it as an underpowered unit and to use open source stuff and to work with the open source community. I can weld. My welding is a bit rubbish. I do have a welder now, thanks to a local friend who donated one to me recently. So we are going to work on building this car in our spare time, copious spare time that we don't have, but we are going to work on it. And if any of you want to get involved, please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. So this is not a rich rebuild, so we're not trying to be rich. And by the way, there's a special with Rich coming very soon. We're not trying to be rich. We're not trying to be Sam Crack. They do great stuff. Let them do their stuff. We're doing this really as a highlight, as a demonstration that, for less than a couple of grand, if you are smart, you can convert this car to an electric vehicle. And the idea, of course, is that we're probably not going to spend just a couple of grand. It'll probably be a little bit more. But the idea is that, we wait for the right batteries to arrive. We wait for the right controller to arrive. And that is our goal. An old Subaru Brat might make a kick-ass EV. I would love to have an old Subaru Brat. It's one of the pickups that I'd love to own, especially as I live in the country. I really do want to have a pickup now, but one car at a time. One car at a time. All right. I'm just reading your. A lovely, ridiculous car. I like that. I like that. All right. I am kind of. I'm feeling. Honestly, for those saying, "Oh, I hope you get better. I hope you're feeling better," I already feel better. I just have a bit of a sore throat. Not sore throat. It's not even a sore throat anymore. I guess I'm a little croaky. I guess that's it. That's really all it is. Just a little croaky. And I'm feeling. Yesterday I felt 10 times better than I did on Friday. And Friday I felt kind of 80% better than I did on Thursday. Thursday was the day I was really sick. And then today I'm feeling like super awesome. I mean, I'd done 2 hours of housework before I came and sat down and did this. So we swept around the house and we mopped the floors and we made some bread and we started off the laundry. And we've started, you know, the plants are growing under the grow light and they've all been checked on and watered. So I'm doing really well. So that's where we're at. All right. I like this studio better than any of the others. You're all so kind. So we've got one light, my studio light there, just to give a bit of light here because otherwise the backdrop is too intense. But this is my yard. Let me show you. So we've got one of my bird feeders, which is a massive bird feeder and has absolutely been decimated this week by the chickadees. And then we've got their bird bath, which again hangs over. We have a really big drop. I don't know if you can see this, but it's what's that? It's probably about 14 feet drop between the end of the deck and the ground underneath, because my house is on a hill. My house is on a hill like that, so we are about here. The bottom of the garden is way down the hill, and the bottom of the garden is probably about 25 or 30 feet lower than I'm sitting right now. It really is quite a steep garden, and the bit of the garden that's not steep is where I've got my vegetable plot. The other side, by our pump house, yes, we have a well. We're basically off-grid save for the electricity. So if we have if we can get solar panels and like a Tesla Powerwall or a Tesla Powerwall-like system, we will be completely off-grid. We've got some big trees out the back. We've got an apple tree that has been really badly neglected, and I had to cut it down basically a lot at the start of the year. And we've got a cherry tree, and that's on the other side of the house. That's not too badly sloped. And then at the front we've got where all the sun is right now. This bit doesn't get very hot because we've got trees all round. So there you go. What have I missed? Not a lot. We've been talking about a lot of stuff that's not really EV related, but I was talking about my city car. Renault Twizy. I'd love to have a Renault Twizy. They're not available over here. I used to own a Renault Twizy, actually. In fact, I've owned 2 Renault Twizys. It's kind of my dirty secret. My first Renault Twizy was... I rear-ended someone. I rear-ended someone in my Renault Twizy. I was in the car with my son, and my son said something to me, and I turned around. And the person in front had just stopped, and I just rear-ended them. And it caused the front end... It was a very low-speed impact, like it was under 10 miles an hour. But the Renault Twizy, much like the smart car, is designed to crumple as soon as it gets hit. And so I crumpled the frame. And so my... someone at Renault found out about it and they rang me up and said, "We've never had a Renault involved in an accident like this. Can we buy the car off you?" So they did. And then I bought another one. So they took it to their lab to see how it had been impacted in a real world scenario. Of course, they'd done hundreds of crash tests, but that particular type of crash they hadn't seen before. So I had a Renault Twizy. Twizzies are fun, but you have to treat them like a motorcycle. You have to mentally feel like you are in a motorcycle or on a motorcycle. You have to drive as defensively as you would ride. And you have to expect to have an accident, not because they're unsafe, but just because people see you and treat you differently when you're in a Twizy. I don't know why, but I would say that is it is also in the same kind of vein as any other microcar. And I've owned, for those who don't know, I've owned a G-Wiz, I've owned a City L, I've owned 2 Twizzys, I've owned a smart car. I've owned another microcar and I can't remember what it was. Pretty sure I owned another microcar. But I've owned several small, really small cars. And you all of them have that same kind of thing. You have to be mindful that they're smaller and you have to be more defensive. But that's the way of doing it. Someone says they want an electric minivan that can have a full 4x8 sheet of plywood with the back closed. That would be awesome. I would love to build one of those, and my wife would really appreciate that because she's a woodworker. And we were looking at wood yesterday for the chicken coop, 16-foot long pieces of wood. That would be really useful. We are going to get our wood delivered for the chicken coop. And for those who don't know, we are building a chicken coop. We are getting a cream leg bar, a Orpington buff, a lavender Orpington, that was a woodpecker, a black copper Morans, just trying to remember, a Baran, and then a blue laced red Wyandotte. Hey, I named them all. So that's what we're getting in terms of chickens. So 7. One of which we're hoping is going to be a rooster, and that will be on the separate channel that we're working on. But that's what we're doing with the in terms of the city car project, and it will probably be built. We're probably going to be building it here because if we don't have a studio, that's the other thing you missed. We're probably getting rid of the studio because I can't afford to keep the studio running and pay for faster internet to the house. So yeah, so that's probably what we're going to do. And hopefully the money saved by not having the studio will mean that we'll be able to maybe pay for a video editor as well. A Morris Minor, I would love an electric Morris Minor, but one is being converted to electric right now. And there is an electric Morris Minor Facebook group, can you believe that? There's a Facebook group for people who want to convert Morris Minors to electric. It's great, I'm in it, it's brilliant. But obviously Kate Walton Elliott is converting her Morris Minor, Rebecca, to electric. She's had Rebecca since she was 13. I hope she doesn't mind me saying that. She's had Rebecca since she was 13. And Rebecca moved to the United States with her. So she was put on a container and shipped across. And before she left for America, Kate converted Rebecca to left-hand drive. So she was a right-hand drive car originally. She converted her to left-hand drive, and now she's here in the United States. Build a studio in the backyard. Yeah, I'd love to. We maybe think about that. My wife wants to build a woodwork shop down there. She does a lot of woodworking. So she's going to be building that as well. But that really is it, I think, for today. We'll be putting more... We're going to put more content out next week. I want to apologise to everybody. I apologise too much, I know. But I'm sorry that we missed 3 days. I was really sick. I wasn't feeling good. I'm now feeling a lot better. And so things will be back to normal. I was going to do a roundup of all the news, but Robert did such a good job, I felt that I didn't need to, you know. So that's pretty much where we're at. We've also got some new, we've got a new product that arrived recently for testing. So we'll be putting that through its tests. but we've got to clean up the garage before we do that. So it's an electric car charging station, and believe me, our garage is full of woodworking stuff right now. So we're going to fix that before we do that. Anyway, Jason, you are a gent. Jason Rogers just sent us a donation through PayPal, through Ko-fi, and several of you have been asking if you want to send us, you want to support us, please do so using Patreon or through Ko-fi. We are no longer using Teespring as our t-shirt provider after basically they had a fallout with us. And just as a bit of an update on that, so we have a t-shirt that says Evolved on the bottom, and it's got a Chevrolet Bolt and a charging station, and it says Evolved. The cable spells Evolved. We've got the same ones for Model Y, Model X, Model 3, Model S. We've got all of those, and we're rolling out some more. Well, we were planning on rolling out more with other vehicle designs as well. But about 2 weeks ago, Teespring, they didn't give us a copyright strike, but they said, we're taking down this because it contains copyrighted content. We're like, what? So I reached out to Erin and was like, hey, this is 100% original, right? And she said, yeah, of course. And I felt bad asking her because, like, that's a horrible thing to have to say, but I'm just kind of covering everybody's bases. Erin made it from scratch, completely from scratch. So, okay, it's not somebody else's art. This is original art that Erin made for the channel. And how are they claiming it? Well, it turns out that the word Chevrolet Bolt, or the name Chevrolet Bolt, is, according to Teespring, copyrighted and therefore cannot be used on any of their merchandise. In terms of, not even on the t-shirt, which it wasn't, but in the description for the t-shirt, that was enough to trigger their copyright warning, which I find stupid beyond belief, crazy, and just not helpful. And so, after backing and forthing with Teespring, who were very unhelpful, their quality's been really poor. Some of you guys have been complaining about shipping costs, which we feel. Their quality's been bad. And then their customer service was just terrible. They were like, well, you know, it's copyrighted. And we're like, show us where it's copyrighted. And they're like, well, it's copyrighted. Like, can you show us the claim? No, it's copyrighted. I'm like, okay, can you tell us what's going on? And eventually I got out of them. They claim that in the past they had a takedown because they used the word Chevrolet in a t-shirt design. And that GM had taken it out and whatnot. I reached out to GM because, you know, I have contacts at all the automakers, some of which are more receptive than others, and the guys at General Motors, I've got a person who I know there, and I was like, hey, have you heard about this? And they're like, no. I said, okay. They reached out to their legal department. Their legal department said, nothing to do with us. And I actually sent them, my contact at GM, the details of the claim so that their legal department can fight it out with Teespring. But it's nothing to do with us. And so it's not GM. It's not GM. That's the point. That's what I'm trying to make. I've spoken to people at GM, and it doesn't appear to be GM. I've heard of similar issues in the past, but most of the major automakers, you know, all of them, I think, are happy if there's a fan-made t-shirt. The only time they wouldn't be happy is if somebody, you know, the only explanation I can come up with is somebody actually took the word, I don't know, Chevy Bolt, or they took the Chevy logo and put that on a t-shirt. Then that's clearly copyright infringement, right? Because you're taking a brand and you're making a t-shirt with that brand on. That's copyright infringement, pure and simple. But if you're making a piece of art that features a vehicle, you want to describe the vehicle in the description and refer to it by its real name, that's not copyright infringement. This is a t-shirt that people who have a Chevy Bolt might want to have. And that's a very different thing. And I don't think that GM actually initiated takedown. At least that's not what it appears to be right now. So we're not selling t-shirts right now. The shop is still up, but I would ask you not to buy anything from it. I think Erin's going to take it down tomorrow. That's one of her jobs for tomorrow. And we found a local t-shirt provider, but we're also looking at ones online again that provide organic, recycled, etc., etc. So before I go, there is one thing I want to talk to you about, and that requires a little bit of a prop. So bear with me, I'll be right back. Oh, you are so warm. I am sorry I'm bringing you out here in the cold. I'll be as quick as I can. Alright. So this is the last bit of my thing. Okay. So I'm cupping it because it's cold out here, and this is a seedling and I don't want it to suffer. So this here, don't know if you can see it, this is a lemon cucumber. I bought the seeds, a couple of months back. I bought them online, ordered them. In fact, I ordered the seeds as I was coming back from Fully Charged Live. It's one of the things I did in the car. I was talking to Erin and Kate, and it's like, hey, do you want any seeds? We ordered it in the car on the way back. So, these are planted 2 weeks ago today. These are my lemon cucumber seeds. Yesterday I actually pricked them out and I potted them up. Now, when you plant seeds normally, you'll plant more seeds than you actually need, because the expectation is that not all of them will germinate. And in terms of my tomatoes and my peppers, I've had about half of my California Wonder peppers have come up. None of my chocolate beauties have come up. I've got a bell pepper called Chocolate Beauty. I've never grown them before. None of them have germinated yet. And 2 weeks is a bit long for germination, so I'm like, I'm just going to leave them in the incubator and see what happens. But my cucumbers, every single cucumber seed germinated, and I don't need 16 lemon cucumber plants. I've also got some regular cucumbers that I'm going to be planting as well. And right now we are in a really nasty situation, and the theme for this video today has been about recyclability, reusability, upcycling, which is why we're doing the city car project. And I want people to start thinking about others in their community. You don't need a greenhouse to grow a cucumber plant or a tomato plant. You don't even need a garden to grow certain things like potatoes. You just need a pot, just a tub. Like, you can go to Home Depot and buy a $5 tub from Home Depot, and you can cut holes in the side and you can grow potatoes. And if you've got a step outside, you can grow potatoes. If you've got a patio, you can grow potatoes. You might not be able to grow fruit trees like these on your patio. These wouldn't be very happy if they stayed on here. They need to go in the ground. But a lot of vegetables you can grow in pots on the windowsill for herbs, on the patio. Or if you've got a room that gets a lot of sunlight, you can even grow cucumbers inside, as long as it's warm enough inside the house. And so I want you guys to think really long and hard about what you're growing, if you're a gardener, and if you're not a gardener, how you could maybe be a gardener this year. Seeds are really affordable. You can order them through mail, so you don't have to have any social contact. And it's really easy and affordable to start growing stuff. Obviously, if you're growing big scale, yeah, it's going to cost you quite a lot. I mean, this year we've spent probably about $200 on topsoil, because the soil here is so bad. We've had to enrich it, and we were planning on planting the garden long before this all took off, before Voldemort came along. But now Voldemort's here, there are loads of people who are losing their jobs. There are loads of people who are losing their income, and much in the same way as the old, adage goes, you can give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, but you can teach a man to fish and he'll live for a lifetime. The same thing is true with vegetables and plants. You could give someone some cucumbers, or you can give someone a cucumber plant, or a tomato plant, or whatever else you happen to be. So I want all of you, and I need your help here, because I want to try and set up a seed exchange, like a virtual seed exchange, with your local community. I think what I'm going to do here is maybe try and build something out of scrap wood that I can put at the front of the house, and just basically say, that's my Stella's J. Shut up! They're noisy. Stella's J's are really noisy. I want people to start exchanging and giving away seeds that they genuinely don't need. We are a small family. We don't need 16 cucumber plants. And we're not going to, sell them on for profit. We don't need to make the money, at least not right now. And I'm sure many of you are in a similar situation. So if you have plants that you're not going to use, just give them away. Don't put them up for sale. unless you really need the money. Just give them away to other people who need them. Because right now, this could be the difference between eating junk food and having something a little bit more healthy now and then. And obviously, you're not going to get very far if you just live on cucumbers. But salad vegetables especially, really easy to grow in pots, really easy to grow indoors even. And I'm going to be putting some seeds in today of various different lettuces. And the same thing is true there. And lettuces are great because you can take a leaf off and they still keep growing. So please do consider how you can help other people get through Voldemort. This is a great way, especially if you've already got the seeds. That's all I'm going to say. Thanks for watching. Support us if you can. I would really appreciate it because our income is dropping because of Voldemort. It's already started to drop. And we only do this because you guys make it possible. So if you can, please do. If you can't because you've lost your job, my heart goes out to you. Know that everybody is in this together. We're all in this together, and we're going to... This is probably the scariest thing that collectively has happened to our society for 70 years. And I don't have the answer, I don't have the solution. But know that there are people who care, even at times when it feels like our governments and our politicians may not. And like I said earlier on, go and watch Governor Cuomo's speech this morning, because it was awesome. Keep evolving.